Let's get something straight right from the start. I'm not going to say this guy's name. He doesn't deserve recognition, only accountability. What matters tonight isn't his name. It's how he got here, what went wrong, and what it says about the state of American security in 2025. The ambush on November 26th, 2 National Guard soldiers were standing watch near the Farragut West Metro stop, just 2 blocks from the White House, as part of a federal crime suppression mission in the capital. They weren't deployed overseas. They weren't in Baghdad or Kandahar. They were home, in the heart of Washington, D.C., defending American streets. Then, without warning, a man walked around the corner and opened fire. Witnesses say it was fast, deliberate, an ambush. A .357 Magnum revolver, 5 or 6 shots, chaos in seconds. 20-year-old Specialist Sarah Beckstrom was hit first. 24-year-old Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolfe was struck trying to pull her to cover. Other guardsmen returned fire and brought the shooter down. He lived, Beckstrom didn't. She died the next day, Thanksgiving morning. A young woman who raised her right hand to serve her country, killed on American soil by someone who never should have been here. Here's what we know, and every part of this has been verified by multiple outlets. The suspect was a 29-year-old Afghan national who came to the U.S. through the 2021 evacuation program called Operation Allies Welcome. That was the effort launched after the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, a program meant to resettle Afghans who assisted American forces. Roughly 76,000 people were brought into the U.S. under that program. Each was supposed to go through comprehensive vetting, biometric screening, background checks, intelligence reviews, the works. That's what we were told. According to the Washington Post and Reuters, this individual was vetted twice, once upon entry in 21 and again in 24 when he applied for asylum. His asylum was officially approved in April of this year, just 7 months before the attack. He lived in Bellingham, Washington, with his wife and 5 children. To neighbors, he looked like anyone else trying to start over. But behind that quiet facade was a darker past. Multiple intelligence officials have since confirmed that he served in a CIA-backed paramilitary unit in Afghanistan, one of the so-called Zero units. Those teams operated in southern provinces like Kandahar, fighting alongside U.S. Special Operations Forces. That doesn't automatically make someone dangerous, but it does mean he'd seen combat, had tactical training, and most importantly, knew exactly what he was doing when he opened fire. After he was subdued and taken into custody, FBI, DHS, and DC Metro Police launched a joint investigation. Federal prosecutors have since filed first-degree murder charges plus weapons and assault with intent to kill. Because Specialist Beckstrom died, the case may qualify for the death penalty under federal law. The Justice Department hasn't ruled it out. As for Sergeant Wolfe, he's still in critical condition as of tonight. Multiple surgeries fighting to recover. So when you think about the cost of national service, remember, the cost isn't always paid overseas. Now let's talk about what happened after the shooting. Within 48 hours, the federal government halted all Afghan asylum and visa processing. That's thousands of case freezes pending a full review of how this suspect got through. Homeland Security ordered an internal audit of Operation Allies Welcome. Every applicant, every file, every vetting record is now being reviewed. And the president authorized an additional 500 National Guard troops to deploy to D.C., bringing the total to about 2,300 personnel under the current crime suppression mission. Their orders changed too. No more static posts, no more predictable patterns that makes them easy targets. They're now rotating and patrolling in roving pairs with DC police, a direct response to the ambush. The big question though, how did he slip through? That's the part no one can explain yet. Officials insist the suspect cleared multiple background checks, biometric data, watch lists, and intelligence databases, but clearly something failed. Maybe he wasn't flagged. Maybe the database never contained the right information. Maybe there were warnings and someone ignored them. We don't know. And until the full review is public, we can only deal in verified facts. So here's what's confirmed. He was legally here. He was legally armed. And he was legally granted asylum 7 months before killing the American soldier. If that doesn't shake you, it should. Because it means either our vetting system doesn't work or it's being rushed to look like it does. This event instantly reignited the immigration and security debate nationwide. Some are calling for a total freeze on new refugee or parole programs until vetting is overhauled. Others warn that overreaction could punish innocent, those Afghans who genuinely served alongside U.S. troops. It's a fair concern, but we can't ignore reality. One man with a gun exposed serious cracks in our national security armor. It's not anti-immigrant to demand accountability. It's pro-American to expect competence. And right now, competence is what's missing. Let's be honest, we've gotten comfortable. We assume danger lives somewhere else, and threats come with warning labels or uniforms. But this was a trained individual on U.S. soil striking uniformed soldiers in broad daylight. That's a failure of preparation, not just policy. Security experts are already reviewing why these troops didn't have better protective protocols, limited situational cover, no overwatch elements, and unclear directives about returning fire in a civilian zone. One internal memo leaked to the Wall Street Journal called the DC Guard deployment an exposed posture without tactical redundancy. That's bureaucratic language for they were sitting ducks. So the failures here aren't just about immigration. They're about leadership, both political and military. And while politicians argue the families of two soldiers are living the aftermath, one family is planning a funeral and the other is praying for a miracle. That's the part cable news will skip because there's no ratings in heartbreak. But that's what this is, heartbreak. The kind that reminds us freedom isn't defended by hashtags or headlines. It's defended by people, real people, who show up when called. And the worst part, these two showed up in their own capital and were still ambushed. If that doesn't make you angry, I don't know what will. Here's what to expect in the coming days. The Justice Department will file the final indictment. Once that happens, more evidence becomes public, including digital forensics from the suspect's seized electronics. Motive is still officially unknown. FBI officials said they found no definitive ties to organized terror groups yet. They're reviewing communications for any ideological triggers or contacts abroad. Congressional hearings are expected next month on asylum vetting and the DC deployment plan. Both parties are already framing the debate. One as a vetting failure, the other as an operational failure. The truth is a mix of both. The National Guard Bureau is rewriting security protocols for urban operations, including new protective gear, policies, and rotation schedules. All of this means this story is far from over. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. We've spent years outsourcing responsibility, assuming someone else is watching the gate. But every collapse in history begins with the same mindset I've spoken about time and time again. Someone else will handle it. Security, parenting, leadership, even faith. It all erodes when people stop taking ownership. Two soldiers stood watch in their nation's capital. They weren't complacent, they weren't distracted, they were doing their job. And they paid the price for a system that failed to protect them. So what is our response? Anger? Of course. But anger without action is just noise. If this doesn't drive us to demand accountability, improve vetting, and harden our domestic defense posture, then we've learned absolutely nothing. I'll end with this. Freedom doesn't defend itself. Freedom doesn't defend itself. It's not maintained by wishful thinking or partisan blame games. It's maintained by strength, vigilance, and courage. The kind our own two guardsmen showed that day. One will never go home again. The other may carry those scars for the rest of his life. They were serving in uniform on American soil, and they were targeted for it. That's not politics, that's reality. And until we fix the system that allowed this to happen, it will happen again. If you want every verified update, every fact as it breaks, I'll be covering this story in depth here. No theories, no spin, just truth. Make sure you subscribe to the Watchman 98. Share this video with someone who still believes it could have never happened here, because this week, it did. As always, stay sharp, stay vigilant, and never stop defending what matters.